Okay.
Our guest on the Motivation Show has known, interviewed, and befriended a plethora of Hollywood and music A-listers. In fact, they are so famous, they would belong on an A+ list category if there was one. She has been a daily columnist and TV editor for The Hollywood Reporter, Hamptons, and a Cosmo contributor. She is an ongoing founder and original founder of Women in Film, an organization she is very proud of with 25,000 members. She has written a riveting, just can't put it down kind of book, and I just can't put it down, called Hollywood Secrets and Scandals, the truth behind stars' closed doors. And wouldn't you like to know? And so would I. So let's get right into these juicy, goosey, and a Lucy or two stories. Welcome
I'll
to
tell you some Lucy stories. Never mind. Go ahead.
That's why I said a couple of Lucys. Welcome to the Motivation Show, Sue Cameron.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I am great. And, I read an article about you a couple of months ago, and they wrote an article, I guess, about Mama Kath's, 50th anniversary of her passing on. And they had you in the story because you were certainly an intriguing part of that story. So let's start with Mama Kath. Tell us the ham sandwich story.
I can't believe that after 50 years, the most important thing I wrote was about a ham sandwich. After writing 2,500 columns and founding Women in Film. But for Cass, I'm glad that it's keeping her memory alive. I adored her. We lived a few blocks apart in Laurel Canyon, and we'd go to each other's pools. We spent a lot of time together. And when she got the notice that she was going to do a show at the Palladium, we were extremely happy because her dream was to do a nightclub act. And I went to the rehearsal of the nightclub act, and I knew it was going to be great. And then the night before she left, we went to Mr. Chow's opening, and we cruised along Mulholland Drive in her purple Cadillac convertible with the license plate ISIS and the white tuck and roll upholstery. Had dinner at Mr. Chow, drove home, and she said, "Will you come to London with me? Because Debbie Reynolds is closing when I open, and she's your friend." I said, "I can't. I don't have notice in advance." So then she gave me all of the important things in her house because she didn't trust the people who were staying there. And I said, "Okay, I'll give them back to you when you come back." And obviously she never came back. And I kept those things until her daughter Owen, who was 7, turned 18. And I gave all of Cass's things to Owen. That I'm very, very proud of that. The ham sandwich issue, when I heard she died, I was walking through the Hollywood Reporter office, and they said, "Hey, does Cass, you're friends with 𝐶𝐈? Is it 1 T or 2?" And I said, 1. Why? And they said she died. And I almost fell to the floor. But instead, I knew I had to put business first. And I called the apartment where she was in London. And her manager, Alan Carr, picked up the phone. He was sitting in the bedroom. Cass's body was still there. And he was crying, and I was crying. And I said, "What happened? What happened?" And he looked around the room and he goes, I know. I see half of a ham sandwich next to her bed. You tell everybody that she choked on a ham sandwich. Do you understand me?" And I knew that there probably was a drug situation. And I wanted to save her reputation. And I thought nothing about doing the ham sandwich. I didn't realize that might be used for fat jokes later. I just wanted to save my friend. And indeed, she did die of a heart attack. She never choked on a ham sandwich. That's what I really want to clear up. Was she partying the night before? Yes. Do I know what she did then? No. She did die of a heart attack.
And do we know how the drugs got there?
I do, but the person who did that is still alive, and I don't want to be found in a body bag.
And I don't blame you. Right. So we'll move on.
Thank you so much. Yes, I appreciate that.
So I
want to be Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah, he's still buried someplace deep down. Poor guy. So you have been a consultant for various entertainment people, reading like a who's who. Terry Hatcher, Jolie Fisher, Suzanne Summers, Valerie Harper, Carole King, Kim Novak, Debbie Reynolds. We probably go on forever here. And interesting, you even mentioned that there's so many others that don't want their names revealed.
Right. Right.
That's how many there are there. In your book's dedication, you actually mention three of them, interestingly enough, Kim Novak, Debbie Reynolds, and Joan Rivers, and you call them my supremes. I take it that this means they would be kind of your top picks of all the interesting people you knew. Like, what exactly do you mean by my supremes?
I mean that they were all my mother.
Mm.
The mothering aspect, the loving aspect. I had a rather cold mother who did say to me, you're the best at everything, you can do whatever you want. She did all that right stuff, but there was really not a lot of emotion or hugging or certain kind of advice that a child would need. And Debbie and Joan particularly were very, very wise. And we would have long, long talks, and Joan would go, don't do that, do this. Debbie would do the same thing. What Kim did for me is very, very interesting. I was so ambitious and worked 7 days a week. I never took the time out to look at a tree. It sounds corny, but when Kim met me, she said, do you know anything about nature? You really need to let nature in your life. And she gave me a plane ticket almost every week to fly up to Carmel, where she would take me on walks, and she bought me roller skates, and she bought me a bicycle, and she took me on all the trails, and she brought all of nature and kindness and spirituality into my life. It was an extraordinary gift.
That's powerful because, you can sometimes look at Hollywood as kind of a little bit of an artificial world, right? And you're living in this artificial environment. Yeah, right. You think, right? And really what's important in this life is maybe seeing a few trees and some grass and, being out in nature, right? The simple stuff, right?
Right. It was very, very, very powerful. And of course, with Debbie and Joan, it was nonstop laughs and tragedies, terrible tragedies. But I gave Joan a rock after Edgar died. I gave her a rock that's a big rock, really big rock, that said laugh. It was carved on it.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
she kept it right on the patio outside of her bedroom. She said it was the best present she's ever gotten.
Yeah, I used to see Jonah, she lived on the other side of the park for me. I'm on the west side. She was on the east side, and I'd see her down the streets all the time. And one of my favorite comedians. I mean, she was definitely a pioneer. Her stuff was awesome. But, wanted to ask you, most people, I think, would be rather intimidated by being around celebrities because they're the celebrity, right? And you're not. And so why were you so comfortable around them, and why were they so comfortable around you?
Because of my parents. My father was an entertainment lawyer and my mother was a singer. And they got divorced when I was 1.5 years. So my father saw me on weekends. My father brought Godzilla to the United States. He didn't produce Godzilla, but all of those other movies, Gigantus, Mothra, Varan, those were all his movies.
Oh, wow.
So I was all around that. And he had a theater called the Las Palmas Theater. And I would watch plays and musicals coming together. And he would take me everywhere. Susie, you want to see Johnny Mathis? He represented Milton Berle. I would be sitting there at 11 with Milton Berle, Sid Caesar. So I would come home at night and Gypsy Rose Lee would be at the bar. So there was never a separation between them and me. And I loved live performing and entertainers so much that when I met these people, I was the young one. And because they were already established, they were older than I was. And they could see that I really cared about them. And when I wrote about them, I told the truth. And that's very rare in Hollywood, that I quoted people.
You think?
Yeah, I quoted people accurately, and they all said to me, we want you in our lives. And basically I was adopted by the Rivers and Valerie Harper and all that. We spent Christmas, Thanksgiving, all these families, Jolie Fisher, Connie Stevens, all of them, they just picked me up and took me with them. It was an extraordinary gift.
Well, you say that no other reporter has ever had the kind of access that you've had to celebrities. And there must be something else about you. Why
I'm really nice. I'm just really nice.
That sums it up right there, just.
I'm also fun. And
okay, that helps.
If Debbie would invite me over to dinner, I would say to her, hey, you know that jazz number that you did in Bundle of Joy, that swing dancing? And she'd go, yes. I said, well, I could do the whole number. She said, really? And I went, oh, yeah. put on the music. And so we would dance and do the swing number. Or I would say, okay, I can tap like this from singing. I would be at a rehearsal for Linda Carter. I'll go, oh, I'll play the drums on this number. And she'd go, what? And I'd sit in and play the drums. So we just kind of contributed to each other on the same level. I still, for a number of my friends who do live performing, I still just for free do their lights and sound and check their rehearsals. It's just fun for me.
Well, you know, what's fascinating in your book is you talk about that you sort of are on their level. You know, you don't look at yourself as subservient or vice versa or anything like that, which is very, very intriguing that you see it that way, because, again, a lot of people would look at themselves as subservient to the star. And a lot of the stars probably want people maybe to be subservient, or maybe they don't. Maybe they like the fact that you're not there kissing their tuchus, as they say, right?
I didn't need any of them.
Yeah.
I had my own money. They didn't need to take me anywhere. I came from a very good family and was raised very well, and I didn't need anybody. And they all knew that. I would give to them because whatever they wanted in print, I would do it. But what they would give to me was wonderful emotion and love. It was like it was a very even thing, very, very back and forth.
So there wasn't an agenda there. There was basically just respect, love, fun.
Right.
And so, you know, because I'm sure a celebrity can smell an agenda a mile away.
Absolutely.
And
I had no agenda.
Right.
I just wanted fun and love. And I would encourage people. There's an actress I won't name, but she called me and she said, I want to win an Emmy. I've been nominated and I haven't won one yet. And I said, well, you need to find the right script. So she gave me every script she was offered for TV movies. And I said, okay, this one, this is your Emmy, go do this. And she was nominated and she won it. And I was backstage when she walked off. I was there waiting for her, hugging her. It's those moments that people really don't hear about, where we really, and when my cat got sick, I said to this star, my vet isn't paying attention to me. Would you please call my vet and talk about my cat? So it was very, very mutual.
You know, it's interesting. Kevin Bacon just did this thing where he dressed up as a regular person, right? So he wouldn't be recognized in public, to see how it would feel to kind of be on the other side. And he says he didn't like it. He liked the fame. He liked the attention. Do famous people ever regret being famous, or do they mostly, in your opinion, enjoy and embrace it?
It's extraordinarily difficult to be famous. Extraordinarily difficult. I don't know J-Lo very well. That is a fame that is so gigantic. I think she really, really, really loves it. And she probably treasures private time less than other people. I have been in a restaurant with a very big star where everyone was staring at us at lunch. And she finally stood up and said in a very loud voice in the restaurant, "This is my cousin, and I haven't seen her in 5 years.
That's great.
Thank you so much, but would you please?" And then when my friends go to restaurants, I make sure that I order a table where they're facing away from people. There are people. It's very difficult when you're Debbie Reynolds and your daughter dies. No one can mourn. That it's the tragedies where the press destroys you. You have no privacy. It's so difficult. Just even to go out and get some milk, it's very difficult. Really.
Yeah, I can imagine that. You know, poor like Princess Diana. You know, they're just stalked her, literally to death.
That's absolutely.
So yeah, I guess there is definitely that downside. Is there any people that you can talk about? Any famous people that didn't really enjoy or couldn't handle their fame very well?
I think the answer is no. The people, let's take Valerie Harper, for instance. She had a heart full of love. She loved it when people would come over and talk to her.
Yeah.
When she was diagnosed with cancer, she and I went out to lunch. What else do you do when you're diagnosed with cancer?
Yep.
And an elderly lady fell down the stairs where we were eating lunch. And it was the week that Valerie was on the cover of People saying, "I'm dying of cancer." But we were having lunch. And the lady falls down, is bleeding all over the place. And Valerie gets up and starts nursing the woman, getting cloths and cleaning. And then this woman lying down there looks at her and goes, "But but you're dying. Why are you helping me? And it's those moments, it's magic. There is a magical thing. If you can make peace with the publicity or not being a private person, it can be enjoyable and it can be used for good.
Oh, that's great. So inspiring. Speaking of inspiring, you wrote this 361-page some odd book. What was your motivation for writing such an intriguing, juicy book, and to keep it so positive and not come out with just like dirt, like some other people might, write, and then regret it later. So tell me about that.
I appreciate you noticing that.
Yes.
Thank you. The reason why I did it is I didn't want these stories and the relationships to die with me and not having the world know how real these people were and what their lives were really like. I wanted, I wouldn't say everything in the book is positive because some people had issues, but I wanted the world to know that these spectacular people are just people. They may be immensely talented and maybe their face melts a camera screen, but they go home and they put on it one sock at a time. And their lives are difficult because there is no privacy. And how do people handle it? And I have noticed that people do better when they have an intact family and they're raised with faith. That may sound corny, but the people who are grounded, like a Nicole Kidman, I'm not even going to go into any more names, but even when I started out in the rock and roll business, the people who survived the rock and roll business primarily were people who had a strong faith. You have to keep your feet on the ground. And if you don't, if there's nothing holding your feet, you're doomed because it's all money and drugs and they have no foundation to stop.
I think faith is probably the most powerful element on the planet for a human being to be happy. The challenge is that it's not so easy to have that faith without, empirical evidence, so to speak, in front of you. But those that do have the faith always seem to be the happier people. Now, you're talking about the late 60s, early 70s, when unfortunately drugs seem to be I don't know how it is today. There's probably a few of those things still around, but
don't ask me.
Yeah, it's kind of infamous back then, unfortunately, that so many of the greats died way before their time, many of which, you knew. In fact, you have I think I'll throw a name or two out, like Jimi Hendrix. I think you have a Jimi Hendrix story. Tell us about that.
Well, he was and is still the greatest guitarist who ever lived, in my opinion. And I was very excited to meet him. And I went to his hotel room. It was arranged by his manager for me to go there. And he was in the bedroom, and that made me a little nervous when it's a suite. The manager says, "Well, Jimmy's in the bedroom waiting for you." And I'm, oh God, because when I first started, I looked ridiculous. I was wearing a plaid skirt and a sweater set and knee socks and loafers. So the people in these rock stars would look at me like, "Who are you, from another planet?" And I started talking to Jimmy, and we're doing this interview, and all of a sudden his head just went forward. He stopped talking like this. And he was just like that. And I'm
nodding out, huh?
He was gone. How do I know that he's on heroin and that's why he passed out? I don't know things like that.
Yeah.
So I went back into the living room and I said to the manager, I said, "Oh, I think Jimmy needs a nap. He's very tired. We better do this interview at another time." And the manager said, "Oh, yes, that's right." And so they show me out. And that night I was at the Whiskey. And that was the night he set his guitar on fire at the Whiskey. And I was terrified. But I didn't know that about drugs. I didn't know anything about drugs. When Jackie DeShannon was going to record at Sunset Sound, which is across the street from a beautiful Catholic church in Hollywood, Jim Morrison was finishing up.
Of the Doors, yep.
Yes, Jim of the Doors was finishing up before Jackie was going in. And so Jackie and I went in, and the room was in a shambles. He was so high, he went to the church and he got a statue of Mary, a real cement, huge statue of Mary, carried it across Sunset Boulevard and threw it through the plate glass window.
Oh, geez.
Studio. So needless to say, she wasn't able to record that night. There were a lot of wild stuff. Sonny and Cher had a chauffeur that if he knew you, he'd just drive up and down the Sunset Strip. If he knew you, he would throw what I call a marijuana cigarette to this day. He'd just throw it in your car, whether you wanted it or not. It was insane.
My goodness. And that was the norm, huh?
Yes, that was a typical
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. So I don't want to go down too many dark roads, but there's one
Okay.
story that has to unfortunately come out here because you mentioned O.J. Simpson in your book. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about O.J.
Whoa. Okay. I am not proud. First of all, I knew OJ because we both went to SC and we ended up doing a lot of
USC,
talk show. Yes, USC. Thank you. A lot of talk shows together. And I also was very friendly with a girl named Tawny Katane. I did not know when I first met Tawny that OJ was the secret boyfriend. When I found out, it was like a reunion, so that was all fine. What I'm ashamed of is that I aided and abetted his cheating on Nicole with Tawny. I'm sorry I did that. They used me as a beard. We would go to hotels and Tawny and I would check in and OJ would be 4 rooms down or whatever. To me, I said, well, this is nice. I get a free weekend at the Ritz-Carlton. I am ashamed that I thought that way. He bought her a Bronco, a white Bronco, just like his. She ended up being very afraid of him too, and he was very rough. But I'm absolutely positive that he killed her. He killed both of them, 100%. Nicole, I'm very close to Faye Resnick, who was living with Nicole at the time, and then checked into rehab. But she told Nicole, Nicole was having an affair allegedly with Marcus Allen, and she was getting ready to meet him that night. And
the
Faye,
Oakland Raiders, right?
They raided one body too much. Anyway, Faye checked into rehab, and OJ was spying on Nicole, and he didn't know. He thought it might be Marcus, but he wasn't sure. And he went crazy when Ron Goldman went to deliver the glasses. Marcus Allen had just arrived at LAX, and after it hit the news that Nicole was dead, Marcus went right back and got on a plane and flew to the Caribbean, allegedly. So he wouldn't have any involvement in anything, but he absolutely killed her. Nicole knew he was going to kill her. She told, one of the last things she said to Faye was, I know he's going to kill me and he's going to get away with it. And I have great respect for Faye, who was the first person to go on television and say he did it. She is a very special lady. But it was very difficult for me because I called OJ in jail because I'm feeling sorry. Oh my God, poor OJ. And that didn't last when I really learned what happened. And I went on a lot of television shows and told everybody that I thought he killed her. And then one night, I didn't know what I was flying to Florida, and so was he. And he came up, I was on a seat outside the plane, and he came walking up to try to get us ticket, and I put a coat over my head, so I looked like a lamp, because I was scared to death. What's he gonna do to me? And I flew all the way to Miami with a coat over my head, because he was sitting 4 seats in front of me.
Wow.
Yes, there's a lot more to OJ, but I think
we'll leave it at that, right?
Yeah.
Because you've written over 2,500 columns that you've done in interviews and reporting on Hollywood celebrities and all these social and political events. And off the air, you told me maybe we should talk a little bit about international stuff. So let's do that before I forget.
Right. I was joking. The foreign policy thing was a joke because of politics. I'll be happy to talk about Richard Simmons, Bob Hope, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, Richard Simmons. Let's talk about him. He's a fun guy.
Well, I'm not sure if you know what happened today, because this is not funny. About an hour ago, Richard died.
Oh, no, I did not know that.
I'm not kidding.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I've been a little shaky because he and I had a very special relationship. He was working, he was doing his exercise classes in Beverly Hills. And someone said, you need to go meet this funny guy. He's really funny. And I went, oh, all right. And I met him and I saw this guy would be great on television. And I picked up the phone and I got him an interview for General Hospital, and they cast him right away. And then I had a business partner at the time named Pat Kingsley, and we took him to ICM, which is an agency, and we packaged that first talk show for Richard, that 5-day-a-week talk show, which was his dream. And the day the show was picked up, he called and he fired us. And I was furious and didn't talk to him for years. And he would keep and we'd run into each other constantly. He'd throw himself on the floor at Mr. Chow's restaurant and grab my leg and cry, going, please forgive me if I have to talk to you. This went on for years. I had to get security because we ended up on a couple of talk shows together. He finally told me that a person associated with the production company locked him in a room and said, you have to sign this contract and give me 50% of your income.
Wow.
And you have to fire Sue Cameron or I'll kill this show. And the guy had the power to do that. I know that. And so I believed Richard when I finally allowed him to talk to me. And we went right back together. He was a very sweet, very disturbed man who had a terrible self-image, a difficult childhood, a fat kid, not loved. He just wanted to be loved, and he spread that love. He was very sincere. He was 100% sincere about making everybody's life better and trying to get everybody healthy.
You know, he inspired millions of people, and
yes.
you know, he kind of disappeared the last couple of years, and so rumors, of course, spread. And I guess apparently there was something going on with him that maybe he didn't share. But
I think he was just done. I mean, I know Richard quite well. He was just done.
Done, huh?
He'd had it. And the world had changed. And the world is very cruel now with social media. Richard didn't start in the world of social media. So I think he had real trouble with that. He was done. He was helping people when he was not in the public. Yeah,
you got to have thick skin with the social media world that we're in today, sadly, because it can be cruel and abusive.
He had no thick skin.
Yeah, that's a sad story. I just had no idea. What a shocker.
Yeah, I'm sorry to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but I loved him. I thought he was a great a character who really made such a difference in people's lives. You know, R.I.P. Richard Simmons.
Absolutely.
So tell us about some of the other stories in people that stand out most to you that inspired you. Anyone else we haven't touched base on before we close?
With inspiration, I'm stuttering a bit because I'm about to tell you a story about Debbie Reynolds that is very upsetting. As she was getting sicker, I visited her at least every 3 weeks, and she really was very seriously bedridden at the end. And she had a really big bed, and Carrie and their dog named Dwight after Dwight Eisenhower.
That's great.
Yeah, I know. We're there all the time. And Debbie was in pain. And I'll tell you 2 fast things. One, she called me one day and she said, I need some marijuana. I said, why are you calling me when your daughter is Carrie Fisher? And she said, I don't want to ask Carrie. I said, oh, I don't know anything about this. I'll try to find someone who will get me something. So I did, and I brought it over. And I was trying to describe to her how to smoke this thing. And I kept saying, you have to hold your breath in. And she said, I am. I said, no, you're not. I said, after you take it in, it's coming out of your nose. And she said, well, I'm a singer, dear. You know how to breathe like that. I said, well, hold your nose. And at that moment, a guy came in, a delivery man came in with food from La Scala and food from Nate and Nell's Delicatessen. And it was Carrie's chef. And we knew that Carrie knew that we were going to get hungry because I told Carrie we were going to do it, but Carrie didn't tell me, and I didn't know who this guy was. Turns out he's a dealer. So Carrie's personal chef was a dealer, and Debbie said, "Oh, I like this. Can you get me brownies? Can you get me?" And I'm going like, "Oh, if anybody knew about this story." That was one. If I have it one more time, do I have any more time?
Yes, please.
One day, it was the last day I saw Debbie, and it was December 21st, the year that they died. And she said to me, I've had a very strange dream. I'm ready for death. I accept it. But last night, as I was lying here, I felt a black cloud come over me, and it was hovering over me, and I knew it was death. And it was, I was ready. I knew it was going to take me. I felt it. And she said, and then it moved. It moved across the bed, and it landed there, which is, of course, is where Carrie would be a lot of the time. And she said, I don't know what it means. And then she said, I'm very, very nervous about Carrie. I'm very nervous about her being in London. I didn't want her to go. Something bad is going to happen.
Ooh, premonition.
I feel terrible. I just feel awful about this. I don't know what it is. Anyway, we hugged each other because she was tired and I had to leave. And I knew I wasn't going to see her again. And I stopped and I turned and I looked at her and I said, I love you. And she said, I love you too. I'll see you right after New Year's. And when we lost Carrie, Debbie was doing very well. She was, because Carrie has a daughter. So Debbie wasn't sinking. She was going to stay alive because she needed to stay alive for Billy. Some other things happened in her bedroom that with some different people that I'm not saying, that upset her. And she had a stroke and died. And my grave is right next to theirs. I loved them very much. And
wow.
that was another family. And I want to be there. Not yet.
Yeah. Well, you know, you talked about in your book that you worked almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 40 years.
Yeah, I did.
Oh my God. Where's the
I
balance?
It was
you
the
loved
balance.
it that much?
The balance was Kim with the trees. I started to slow down more in the late 80s and 90s. And now I'm a happy girl. I live on a golf course. I putt, I play golf, I play cards, and I still go to all the clubs. And I'm on my way to New York because Lucy Arnaz is having a birthday party there, and Bette Midler is having a screening, and I'm going to that with Marlo Thomas. And my life goes on. I have a great time.
Oh, that's a great story. So I want to recommend that people go get your book, Hollywood Secrets and Scandals. It really is an inspiring book. I mean, just so many great stories. I wish we had the time to get into it, like another 30 or 40 stories a week. I think you said off the air, you can go for like days. And I think we probably could. So tell us a little bit about how people can stay in touch and learn more about what's going on, your website and anything else you're doing.
Oh, they just go to SueCameron.net. And I promise I will be diligent in putting more things on it. I've been a little slack, but I will do that because I would enjoy doing that. SueCameron.net. And
any other things that we should look out for in the next year or two coming from your world?
Well, I go on, well, for me, I go on cruise ships lecturing about Hollywood all the time. And I'm doing a number of shows in Palm Springs, all of my lectures in a certain theater, and interviewing Owen Elliott, because Owen is out with a new book about her mother. What's coming about in the world is a huge change in Hollywood. A lot of studios, television, linear television is dying. Studios are being taken over by people who don't know what real entertainment is. I think Hollywood is seriously in trouble. It always will rise, but it's in a very, very precarious situation right now.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show today. And guys, get out and get Hollywood Secrets and Scandals like I did on Amazon.com, or go to your local bookstore. Thank you again, Sue.
Oh, thank you so much, Eli.